Hello all my role-playing peeps, this is +4 Initiative Bonus. Once again, we're here with another DMing tip, and the DMing tip this time around is how to properly use kobolds. Now, this is the second time I've actually went up recording this one because I had a little bit of a mistake, and the first one I went over the history of the kobold. But I think what we're going to do is we're going to save that for actually another actual video, the history of a kobold. So essentially what we're going to get into is we're going to get straight into the meat and potatoes of the kobold. Now, when it comes to kobolds, all through the editions, now one thing I will give is the kobold was the very first creature ever put into Dungeons and Dragons. They were the first creature that was introduced. Okay? Now, what that means is that there is 30 plus years of history, of lore, of anything and everything that you can think of for the kobolds. Okay? Usually a kobold, I like to play kobolds like this. Kobolds are master trap makers. Period. End of discussion. There's no ifs, ands, or buts, or doubts to that. They will create a trap to kill you, and it does not matter what, at least the way I run them, it does not matter what level you are, whether you're level 1 or you're level 20. It does not matter. Kobolds, in my opinion, are the most deadliest creature that has ever been introduced because of one simple fact. They are so weak that higher level characters brush them off as nothing. They're easily killed. They've got less than 10 health. I can spit on the ground and do that much damage. Challenge accepted, player. Challenge accepted. I like to give my kobolds a couple of things. I like the idea of the pack tactics. Okay? Now, usually what this means, especially in D&D 5th edition, what this means is it usually means they have an advantage when there's another kobold close. Okay? Now, if another kobold is close, it gives them advantage. But I like to do one better. I like to give them pack tactics, and I like to give them combat tactics. That's another thing that I like to drop in when it comes to my kobolds. Whether it's 1st edition, whether it's 5th edition, it does not matter. This works. This makes your kobolds deadly. Essentially, what it means is with combat tactics. If there is a kobold within, we'll say 15 feet, you can vary this over how you'd like. Within 15 feet, they get a +1 to hit. And for every 3 or 4 kobolds within this, they get a +1 to their save. Whatever save you want to give them. Whatever save that they're doing, if there's, say, 8 kobolds grouped together, so you do 4, there's 8 of them, which means that would give them a +2 to all of their fortitude, constitution, fortitude, reflex, will saves, in 3.5, but in 5th edition, any of the saves, it gives them a +1 to. And I also do this. If there's 10 or more kobolds within a 30-foot, say, area, the kobolds get advantage on initiative. Okay? If there's a ton of them there, and there's only 4 party members, and there's 20 kobolds, one, they get a bonus, they get advantage on their initiative, and if there's 20 of them, which means doubles that 10, they get a +1 to their initiative. You can do that in 5th edition. In 3.5, what I simply like to do, if there's 10 or more, for every additional kobold past 10, they get a +1 to their initiative. And I like to roll my kobolds as 1. Okay? I do give my creatures morale. Okay? Say there's 10 kobolds. Once 4 kobolds start dying, I start rolling for morale. And the way I do morale is, say I started off with 10, okay? I roll a d20 and add ever how many's left, that's the bonus, okay? And I start setting the DC. Like for instance, if say 6 or more, I'm going to start rolling, say I'll put the DC relatively low. I might put it like say 10. Okay, so which basically means I've got to roll a 4 or better, and they'll pass their they'll pass their morale. For every additional Kobold that dies, it downgrades that bonus, and essentially, and the DC gets higher. So eventually, Kobolds are cowardly creatures. I've always played them as cowardly creatures, and you should always play them as cowardly creatures, because you don't want to put an extremely weak creature against a level 10 PC. You've got a player that can literally, like I said earlier, spit and deal like 15 damage if he wants to, and not even think about it. And the Kobold, that would obliterate a Kobold. So you got to put a mechanism in there so they know when to run, or give the Kobolds proper cover and make them annoying. That is another thing. You give your Kobolds, make them annoying. Give them arrow slits. They walk down a hallway, all these arrow slits open up, and the group gets peppered. And all the group hears is just, giggles and laughter, and the arrow slits go away. So the players just got peppered. It's okay. It's okay to pepper your players. It's okay to hurt your players. The goal here is what I like to do is my goal as a DM when I'm running Kobolds is to make the players think, is this worth it? Is this worth it? But what you got to do is you got to make the reason why they're coming into this area and provoking these Kobolds. There has to be a reason. Say the Kobolds, my favorite one, and actually going to be the one that I'm going to run in an upcoming 5th edition game, is these Kobolds. Kobolds like the taste of flesh. They enjoy eating sentient creatures. Okay? And they do enjoy eating humans, especially. And their favorite thing to eat is human babies. So what I like to do, what I'm going to do, is in this adventure, the reason why the players are after these Kobolds is these Kobolds launched a raid against an orphanage, and they stole 10, 15 human babies. So that's going to basically what that does is that any player, not just player, but person, is going to be like, we can't do, they're stealing babies? Let's go after them. Let's kill these things. And that's the point. The point is you want your players. I like to make my players think, we got to do this because this is the right thing to do. And then they show up, and then all hell breaks loose. Just remember, traps are your friend when you're a Kobold, or when you're running Kobolds. Okay, traps are your friends. But you cannot trap every door, every hallway, every, loose rock cannot be trapped. Because essentially what that does is it does make your group, it will make your players paranoid. But what you need to do is you need to get your players to the point to where they're paranoid and then stop your traps. So basically what you get is you got, say you've trapped the first 3 doors. Okay? Think of it like this. The Kobolds don't think anybody's going to go past the 3rd door. Okay? There's 3 doors, 3 different big rooms, or 3, in their mine or wherever they're at, their burrow or wherever. And once the Kobold, you get to a certain point, the Kobolds think, well, nobody's going to make it this far. So 3 rooms, 3 is usually the rule that I use. That 4th one's not going to be trapped in any way, but the players are going to say, well, the last 3 were trapped, so this one has to be trapped too. So they check it. Nothing's there. It's not trapped. And the players are like, well, okay. They move on. That's when you throw another trap at them, because they're like, well, the last one wasn't. What's this one? And it goes off. Something happens. So when it comes to Kobolds, my goal as a DM is to be annoying as humanly possible. I want players to say, holy crap, +4 is running Kobolds again. Why? I hate these stupid things. They I hate them. That's my goal. Because when I play monsters and different things like that, I always like to give my monsters different personalities. Especially when it comes to Kobolds. Kobolds are so fun. I love them. They're puny little creatures that have 4 and 5 health. Nobody thinks that they're anything. But that, as a DM, should be a tool that you use against them. Now, when it does come to Kobolds, every so often in the Kobold society, an Urg or an Erd will be born. Basically, it's a Kobold with wings. Okay, which reiterates that whole dragon heritage thing that they've been pounding since 3rd edition. Okay, because originally Kobolds were like these doggy creatures that like yelped and stuff like that when they talked. It was almost like a dog language almost, but they kind of evolved to like these like scaly, like little lizard, dragony kind of creatures. And I like to actually add, if my kobolds have to fight, I like to add every so often, I like to add a couple of kobolds that have breath weapon. Okay? Now what that does is like, oh, there's just puny kobolds. They don't mean nothing. They can't hurt us. And all of a sudden, these 3 kobolds show up and they belch 3d6 fire damage in a cone at your players. And all of a sudden, your players are like, holy crap! These kobolds just breathe fire on us. Why? That could be a whole story arc in itself. Why are the kobolds breathing fire? Okay? Usually, when it comes to kobolds, the herb is usually like an outcast. I don't play it that way. I usually play that one as the leader because he actually is, he can confirm his dragon heritage because he's got wings. I might give them riding lizards, big light riding lizards that they may use in battle, especially underground. You got these lizards that are like sticking to the walls and on the ceiling, and you got this kobold that's strapped. He's got in a saddle, and the saddle straps him in, so the lizard is upside down, the kobold's upside down, and he's got a bow and arrow, and he's like firing into the group, and the group, this kobold's like 25 feet in the air shooting down at them. And you could do that with a whole contingent of kobolds. I once put a group, they entered this room, and it was a high arched room. It was about 20-25 feet ceiling. And the door busts open, and the kobolds actually launched an assault, an attack against the group. And a bunch of kobolds come out, and out front I put what's called a dragon shield, a kobold dragon shield. And the kobold dragon shields are kobolds that have no fear. They are strong. They are built and bred for combat. They are frontline combatants. Okay, even though they only got like 20 health, 20, 25, maybe 30 health. Okay, but their big thing is they've got a shield. And what I like to give them, if you get 2 or more together, I give them an ability called Phalanx. So essentially what happens is that once you get 2 or more, they add a +1 to the adjacent kobold's AC. Okay, so if you've got one on the left and one on the right, essentially the one in the middle has a +2 to his AC. Okay, makes them a little stronger, a little more deadlier, harder to hit. You give them scale mail. Well, you give them scale mail. You give them a shield. If it was 3.5, I usually give them tower shields, like small tower shields that they'll go up and they'll set down and set up. And I like to give them spears, so when the group runs up to actually fight these guys, they got spears. They set ready actions, and they come up and they're constantly poking at the players, constantly, every round. In 5th edition, I like to put them together. I give them. I usually don't give them spears. I usually give them short swords, or I will give them hand crossbows. I'll give them hand crossbows, and I'll give them a short sword. So what happens is they go up, they lock their shields, and they activate Phalanx, and they fire together. This hail of arrows comes flying at the group, and they simply put the thing away and they pull their sword out. So with combat tactics factored in, you can start to see the tumbling effect that happens even against high-level players, high-level characters. You get these kobolds that will literally overwhelm the players. And that's the way it should be when it comes to kobolds. If a kobold clan has to fight, now they will actively avoid a frontal assault. Okay? They don't want to fight. Your goal is to set traps, to pepper the group randomly with arrow slits that open up and hail of arrows come flying at the group, or something along those lines. Essentially what happens is your goal is to make the group use potions, make them use healing spells, make them use up magic, so when they actually get to the point to where the kobolds decide, alright, that's enough, we have to fight these guys, the group is drained, and now you've got this Cobalt group that's moving as a unit that is actively trying to defend their burrow. And that's how you should play Kobolds. It doesn't matter what the Kobolds are doing. It doesn't matter if they stole human babies and they're wanting to eat them. It doesn't matter if like they've been stealing sheep and chickens from the local farm areas. It doesn't matter what they're doing. Okay? The Kobolds see that as them scavenging for food. They have to eat. It doesn't matter. They have to eat, just like you. So, when you come into their area and come into their burrow, they see it as you as an invader. Okay? They're defending themselves. That's the way they see it. So usually that's that's how you should play them. That's how they should act. Is that they are going to actively defend the egg chamber. They're going to actively defend the young and the innocent. That's the way they see it. And they will move as a unit, and that's the way I always play it. And I usually give a Cobalt commander. If we've got 10 or more Kobolds fighting the group, I usually drop in a Cobalt commander. He's got more health. He might have a couple of levels of an actual class, something along those lines. Okay. Now I do like to fudge around with monsters a lot, especially Kobolds, goblins, orcs, things like that. You sprinkle in a couple of little. Now with Kobolds, I don't like to give them. The only ones that are going to have good magic items are going to be the commanders, the generals, the clan leader especially should have an item of some kind that distinguishes him among the group. Like, I am the leader. Here's what this is passed down to leadership. He might have gauntlets of ogre strength or something along those lines. He might have a +1 magic sword, something along those lines. That's what the leaders should have. They should not have some kind of massive, super awesome, artifact weapon, because they're kobolds. Okay, you don't do that. You don't give a kobold an artifact. Okay, they all ultimately, as long as the way I like to play it, as long as their leadership is there, barking orders. I also like to give their commanders and clan leaders and things like that, I give them an ability called Command. And what they do, they can give up their turn and command a group of kobolds. I usually do 2d6 + 4 kobolds to activate and have a turn in his turn. Okay? So essentially what you get is sometimes you can have, I usually give them legendary actions. Especially the commanders, things like that. And the only thing they have in their legendary action is that. Okay? But they can only activate this on their turn. Basically, they give up their turn, they stand still, and they bark orders. And they bark orders, and 6, 7, 8, 10 kobolds decide, "Rah!" and they launch an attack. And this can become very deadly, especially kobold archers. A good way to fight the group is put archers, spear throwers, slingers, whatever, skirmishers of any kind, up on a raised area, on a raised platform, and put something under it where the group has to climb it, things like that. And you put normal kobolds, or cobalt dragon shields, or kobolds with slings, or whatever, at the bottom. Put the Cobalt Commander at top, along with, say, a sorcerer, one sorcerer, and, say, maybe a shaman, which would be their version of a cleric. And then the group attacks. So now the group has to fight and deal with the dragon shields and normal kobolds in the bottom. The whole time you've got the archers and the spear throwers and javelin throwers, whatever, raining all this down on the group. And as soon as the group starts their process of climbing the actual wall to get to these guys, that's when you have the sorcerer pop up and start raining magic spells down on the group. And you should not make your Cobalt sorcerer. The highest level I like to make a Cobalt sorcerer is 5 or 6. Just high enough to where they can get and throw a fireball. 1. You want to give him the ability to throw 1 fireball. Give him a couple of scrolls, maybe a wand of magic missile, something along those lines. So now the group has to climb up this wall to get to the kobolds. What you do is once the group gets so high, they activate a trap. Basically, if you want to be really nasty, you can simply activate a grease trap, which would provide a higher DC climb, possibly a balance check, depending on what kind of situation you're going in, things like that. Or maybe, maybe a flame trap, or alchemist fire falls from the ceiling down on the group, or whatever. Once the group gets to the top, where they can actively engage these kobolds, when they engage the kobold skirmishers are behind a barrier, a spiked barrier. So they've got to get through the barrier, then they can actually actively fight the kobolds. But at that point, once they get to the barrier, the kobolds should actively be trying to retreat. They should retreat back into their burrows and hide and force the group to come after them. That's the thing. You force the group to come after them. The kobolds, as they're going, are springing traps on the players, and basically it gets to the point, is it actually worth dealing with these stupid kobolds to save these babies? Or whatever you've got going on. Okay? So, I think what we've kind of reiterated here is when it comes to kobolds are sneaky, they're dastardly, they're master trap makers, and simply giving them a couple of character levels can make them absolutely deadly in the right situations. And if you don't tell your players and make it to where the kobolds are protecting an ancient dragon shrine of some kind, the group shows up, they get down to the final chamber, and it's a dragon horde. They're like, players flip out because there's like 1 million gold here and all kinds of magic items. They're like, oh my god, but as soon as they touch the gold, the dragon awakens, and now they've got to deal with, like, say, a young dragon, a young red dragon, or an adolescent of some kind. Now, he's still, high challenge rating, but still, he's a dragon. And that can factor into more of your plot in the area, things of that nature. Now, we're going to stop right there. We're sitting at about almost 22 minutes, or 23 minutes. We're going to leave it right there because I got to talk about this for hours. Once again, my name is +4 initiative bonus. Remember to like and subscribe and share this, and click the little like button and click the little dingy bell thing in the corner so everyone so you can actually see when I upload videos, things like that. Like me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter and Instagram. It's all linked in the channel description. So we're going to leave it right there. Once again, my name is +4 initiative bonus, and I'm going to leave you with this. Just know that I am a GM, but I'm also a player.